All right, so your quiz review is 5.1 and 5.2. Your quiz tomorrow, same sections, 5.1 and 5.2. So from 5.1, we have to rewrite each polynomial in standard form and classify it by the degree and by the number of terms. So we need both of those words. All right, so number 1, what comes first? 5n to the 4th power. Tara, what comes next? Yes. Negative 9n to the 3rd power, and then?
Positive 3n squared.
And then last? All right, so how do we classify it by the degree?
By the number with the greatest.
So our greatest exponent, what would we call something to the 4th power? Quartic. And then how do we classify it by the number of terms? There's 4 terms, so it would be polynomial of 4 terms. So remember those 2 charts with the words, you guys have to know those for tomorrow. All right, number 2. It's only 1 term, so it's already in standard form. How do I classify it by the degree? If it doesn't have a variable, it's constant. And then how do I classify it by the number of terms? It's just 1 term, so it is a monomial. Right, number 3. Again, it's 1 term, so it's already in standard form. How do I classify it by degree? Linear, because it has a variable, but no exponent, so it's just 1, so it's linear. And then how do I classify it by the number of terms? Again, it's monomial because it's just 1. All right, number 4. How do I put it in standard form? 3k to the 5th power comes first, then minus 10k squared. So classifying it by degree, what degree am I looking at here? I'm looking at the 5, so it would be quintic. And then number of terms. How many terms do I have? So what do I call something with 2 terms? Binomial. So do I have to combine like terms for number 5? What do you think? What do you think? Yes. So we want to combine like terms. So what's 4n squared minus 9n squared? Negative 5n squared, and then minus 7. So how do I classify this by degree? Degree is the 2. Quadratic. So when your degree is 2, it's quadratic. And then how do I classify it by the number of terms? Binomial. 2 terms, so it's binomial. All right, number 6. It's just 1 term, so already in standard form. How do I classify it by the degree? Cubic. And the number of terms? Monomial. It's just 1, so monomial. All right, number 7. What comes first? 9x to the 4th power, and then? 8x to the 3rd power, and then? Minus 7x squared, and lastly? 6x. All right, so how do I classify this by degree? My highest degree is that 4 there, so this is quartic. And then how do I classify it by the number of terms? Polynomial of 4 terms. What if I had 5 terms? What would I call that? polynomial of 5 terms. All right, last one, number 8. How do I put it in standard form? Negative 6x cubed. What comes next? Negative 4x squared minus 4x minus 1. How do I classify it by degree? 3 makes it cubic. And number of terms? Again, polynomial of 4 terms. All right, the next part, we have to describe the end behavior of each polynomial. So as a little reminder, if it's positive, so if our leading coefficient is positive, that means that the right arrow goes up. And then if it's negative, the right one goes down. So positive or negative always tells you what the right arrow does. And then if it's even, what's the left arrow going to do? Same as the right one. If it's odd, they go in opposite directions. So we always want to look at our highest degree. That's the only term that we care about here. So for number 9, which term am I looking at? X to the 8th power. Now, is it positive or negative? Positive. So what does the right arrow do? Right arrow goes up. Is it even or odd? 8 is an even number. So what does the left arrow do? Goes up. They go in the same direction. So up and up. All right, number 10. What term am I looking at here? Negative x to the 6th power. So is it positive or negative? So what does the right arrow do?
Down.
Right arrow goes down. Is it even or odd? Even. So what direction does the left one go? Down. The same direction when it's even. So down and down. Again, on the quiz, you can use arrows or you can use your words. So you can say up and up and down and down. But remember, the order matters.
So when the x is negative, they both.
All right, number 11. Which term am I looking at? X to the 7th power. Is it positive or negative? So what does the right arrow do? Is it even or odd? 7's an odd number, so what does the left arrow do? Down. So down and up. Bless you.
Doesn't it, if it's positive or negative, doesn't that mean the left arrow is gonna go, or is it the right one?
The right one. Positive or negative tells you what the right one does, so the second arrow. All right, 12. Which term am I looking at? X to the 9th. So what's the right arrow going to do? Right arrow goes up. Is 9 even or odd? Odd. So what does the left arrow do? Down. They go in opposite directions.
So the x is.
All right, 13. Which term am I looking at here? Negative 25x to the 4th. So here it's the middle one. It's not always going to be the first term, but it's the one with the highest degree. So negative 25x to the 4th. Is it positive or negative? Negative. So what does the right arrow do? Down. Is it even or odd? 4 is even. So the left arrow has to go in the same direction. So down and down. Right. So you have to look at the highest degree. All right, 14. Which term am I looking at? X to the 6th power. Is it positive or negative? So what does the right arrow do? Is it even or odd? Even. So what's the left arrow doing? Up. So up and up. Whenever it's even, they go in the same direction. So for the last ones, we have to find the zeros and graph. So how do I find the zeros? Set each piece equal to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0. So then we have two little equations here, and we just solve for x. So how do I solve for x in the first one?
-5.
-5. So what does x equal? -5. And in the second one? Subtract 3. So what does x equal? -3. So draw your graph. I'm going to put a point at -5 and -3 on my x-axis. So point -5, -3. You don't need to put anything on the y-axis. You can just leave it blank. Next, I want to check my end behavior. So how many x's total do I have? 2. So this is an x squared. Do either of those x's in the question have a negative in front of it? No. So it's a positive x squared graph. So what is the end behavior of a positive x squared graph go? Up and up. Because it's positive, so the right arrow goes up, and it's even, so they go in the same direction. So up and up. And then just connect them down below. One way you can check, I'm going to do a little graph on the side here. So if I had 2 zeros, here and here, and I thought that my end behavior went down and up, if I put a down arrow out of the left one and an up arrow out of the right, there's no way that I could connect these dots without crossing the x-axis, and you can't cross the x-axis more than the points that you have. So you're only allowed to cross the x-axis at those 2 points. Can't cross it anymore. So here I know if I said this was down and up, it'd be not right because I would cross here, which that's not possible. So you can only cross at the points that you have. All right, 16. This one was a fun one. What do I do first to find the zeros? So x equals 0, negative x plus 2 equals 0, and negative x plus 5 equals 0. So this one's already solved. That's an answer. How do I solve the second one? Add x to the other side. So 2 is equal to x. And then how do I solve the third one? Same thing, add x to the other side, so 5 is equal to x. So these are my 3 answers. I'm going to graph them. So I have a point at 0, a point at 2, and a point at 5. Now I need to figure out the end behavior. So how many x's do I have? 3. So it's an x cubed graph. Do any of those x's have a negative in front? Yes. How many of them? 2. So I have a negative and a negative. What do 2 negatives make? A positive. So this is a positive x cubed graph. Kimberly.
Why did you write negative x plus 5? Does it change to a plus?
Oh, sorry. It should be minus. Oops. Because it's a minus here. You're right. Thank you. So this should be a negative 5. So this point should be over here. My bad. So it should be negative x minus 5 is equal to 0, which gives us negative 5 as our answer. All right, so back to our end behavior. If we have a positive x cubed graph, what's my right arrow going to do? My right arrow goes up because it's positive. What does my left arrow do? Go down because it's odd, so they go in opposite directions. So that's odd, so they go in opposite directions. So my left arrow goes down, so my left arrow goes out of the point farthest to the left. My right arrow goes out of the point farthest to the right. And then I connect the dots. And this one, the reason why it's positive is because we have 2 negatives in our answer, or in our question. We had 2 negatives, and 2 negatives make positive. Any other questions here? All right, 17. First thing we do is find our zeros. So x minus 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. So what does x equal? X equals 5 and x equals negative 3. So on my graph, I'm going to put a point at 5 and a point at -3. How many x's do I have? 2. 1, 2. Do either of those x's in the question have a negative in front of it? So it's a positive x cubed graph. So what's the end behavior going to be? Up and up. Because it's positive, the right one goes up, and it's even, so they go in the same direction. So up and up. And then just connect the dots. All right, 18. How do I find my zeros? X plus 1 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0. Then solve for x. So x is equal to, and x is equal to 4. All right, so put those points on your graph. I have a point at -1 and a point at 4. And then my end behavior. How many x's do I have? 2. So it's an x squared graph. Do either of those x's in the question have a negative in front? No. So up and up. Perfect. And then just connect the dots down below. So we find the zeros the same way. X plus 3 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. X plus 8 equals 0. So solve for x. X equals what? -3. X equals -4 and -8. So on our graph, we put -3, -4, -8. So -3, -4, and -8. How many x's do I have here? 3. Do any one of those x's have a negative in front in the question? Nope. So it's a positive x cubed graph. So what's my end behavior here? So the right one goes up, and what does the left one do? Down. So down and then up. So out of the left one, I have a down arrow. Out of the right point, I have an up arrow, and then I just connect the dots in between. So my graph looks like this. Remember, your graph can look like this, or if you want, you can make it go like this. It doesn't matter, as long as you just only touch the x-axis at those 3 points. Can't cross it anywhere else. Any questions here? All right, number 20. How do I find the zeros?
X equals 0. X equals, what's coming from 1?
So x,
X minus 1 equals 0. And X minus 5 equals 0.
perfect. So then x is equal to 1 and 5 and 0. Don't forget about the 0. So if you have an x all by itself, don't forget to put that equal to 0 also. So I'm going to put those on my graph. I have a point at 0, a point at 1, and a point at 5. And next is my end behavior. How many x's do I have? 3. Do any of those x's have a negative in front? Nope. So it's a positive x cubed. So what's the right arrow going to do if it's positive? Up. What does the left arrow do? Down. So down and then up. And then we connect the dots.